close your eyes and imagine, for a moment, a world where heroes are still learning to walk, where the greatest adventures haven't yet been written, and destiny arrives not with fanfare, but with a gentle fall from the sky, landing softly on the back of a curious green dinosaur. This is where we begin tonight, in the dream of a guardian who has been there since the very start, watching over Nintendo's most beloved heroes through every triumph and trial. This is the story of Yoshi. Before Mario scaled his first castle, before Link drew the Master Sword, before Samus landed on Zebes, there was a dream. In the mind of Shigeru Miyamoto, as he crafted the revolutionary platforming adventures that would define gaming itself, there lived the idea of a companion. Not a power-up to be collected and discarded, not a temporary ally who vanishes when the level ends, but something more enduring. A friend. Someone who would carry the hero through impossible journeys, someone gentle enough to trust with the most precious cargo, someone who would become as iconic as the heroes themselves. That friend, that dream made manifest, would come to be known across the world by a simple, joyful name: Yoshi. And though we may know him as Mario's faithful steed, as the star of his own colorful adventures, as a fighter in tournaments and a champion in races, there is something deeper here, something that deserves our quiet attention on this peaceful night. Yoshi is not just a character in these stories. He is the one who was there when the stories began. He is the guardian who watched it all unfold. Tonight, as you settle into stillness, as the world outside grows quiet and distant, we will walk together through Yoshi's long dream. We will see the islands where he was born, the moments when baby heroes fell from clouds and landed, impossibly, safely, in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. We will explore the storybook worlds that transformed at the whim of villains, and remember how happiness itself can be stolen and reclaimed. We will watch as this gentle dinosaur became not just a companion to heroes, but a hero in his own right. So let yourself drift now into the green fields of Yoshi's Island, where the grass sways softly and flowers bloom in impossible colors. Let yourself become small, weightless, carried on the back of someone who has never let a hero fall. Let yourself rest in the knowledge that this story, like all the best dreams, will carry you somewhere safe and warm by the time morning arrives. The dream begins with a wish and a wall. In the mid-1980s, as the Nintendo Entertainment System breathed new life into an industry that had nearly collapsed, Shigeru Miyamoto found himself imagining what came next. The original Super Mario Bros. Had redefined what video games could be, turning simple jumping mechanics into poetry, transforming obstacles into opportunities for creative expression. Players around the world had fallen in love with this mustachioed plumber and his adventures through the Mushroom Kingdom. But Miyamoto, ever the dreamer, was already thinking beyond what existed. He was thinking about what could exist, if only the technology would allow it. He wanted Mario to have a dinosaur companion, something playful and unexpected, something that would change how players moved through these worlds. In his sketches and discussions with the team, the idea took shape. A creature that Mario could ride, that could eat enemies, that would be both steed and friend. It would add a new dimension to gameplay, a new way of solving problems, a new personality to charm players. It was, in every way, a perfect idea. Except for one small problem. The Nintendo Entertainment System simply couldn't do it. The hardware, revolutionary as it was for its time, had limits. The processors could only handle so much information, only track so many sprites on screen, only remember so many different behaviors for different objects. Adding a rideable companion with all the complexity that would require, with all the interactions and animations and possibilities, was simply beyond what the system could manage. The dream would have to wait. Mario would adventure alone, and the dinosaur companion would remain in Miyamoto's imagination, patient and unborn. Years passed. Super Mario Bros. Became a cultural phenomenon, selling millions upon millions of copies, defining the platformer genre for a generation. A sequel arrived, then another. Super Mario Bros. 3, released in 1990, represented the absolute peak of what the NES could achieve. The levels were more complex, the power-ups more varied, the worlds more imaginative. Miyamoto's team had pushed the hardware to its absolute limits, creating something that felt impossibly rich and detailed. And once again, Miyamoto thought about the dinosaur companion. Once again, he tried to find a way to make it work within the constraints of the hardware. And once again, the answer was no. Not yet. Not here. But something had changed. Nintendo was no longer limited to the NES. A new system was in development, something more powerful, more capable, more ready to handle the dreams that had been deferred. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System would soon arrive, and with it, a world of new possibilities. Takashi Tezuka, who had worked closely with Miyamoto on the Mario games, remembers a picture that Miyamoto drew during the development of Super Mario Bros. 3. It showed Mario on a horse, and Miyamoto hung it near where he worked. Tezuka would look at that picture and think to himself, "I think he wants Mario to ride something." When development began on what would become Super Mario World, the game that would launch alongside the Super NES and define it in the same way the original Super Mario Bros. Had defined the NES, Miyamoto finally had the power he needed. The team decided to set the game in Dinosaur Land, a world of prehistoric wonders and colorful creatures. And Tezuka, remembering that picture of Mario on horseback, asked the character designer Shigefumi Hino to create something special, something reptilian, something that would finally bring Miyamoto's long-held dream to life. Hino's first attempts produced something too realistic, too close to an actual dinosaur. Tezuka looked at these early designs and felt they didn't quite fit into the Mario world, which had always embraced the cartoonish, the fantastical, the gently absurd. He encouraged Hino to make the creature cuter, friendlier, more at home in the Mushroom Kingdom's aesthetic. The design evolved, softening, becoming rounder and more appealing. And somewhere in this evolution, influenced by turtles and kindness, and the need for something that felt both new and familiar, Yoshi took his final form. The saddle on Yoshi's back, that distinctive red platform where Mario would sit, was actually conceived as a shell. In the early concept, Yoshi was meant to be a type of Koopa, connected to the turtle enemies that had been part of Mario's world from the beginning. This would explain the hard surface, the protective nature of it. Though the explicit Koopa connection faded as the character developed, this origin remained embedded in Yoshi's design. That saddle shell became iconic, instantly recognizable, a perfect marriage of form and function. It was comfortable enough to imagine sitting on, distinctive enough to set Yoshi apart from anything else in gaming. The long tongue, that signature move that would become synonymous with Yoshi, emerged from an almost comical origin. Hino originally conceived it as Yoshi sticking out his tongue in surprise when Mario hit the back of his head to signal. This was later recontextualized in a way that made more sense from both a gameplay and character perspective. Instead of Mario striking Yoshi, he would point forward, and Yoshi, understanding his friend's intent, would extend that incredible tongue to grab enemies, fruit, or whatever else lay ahead. The animation remained, but the meaning shifted. It became collaboration instead of compulsion, partnership instead of control. This tiny change in interpretation speaks volumes about who Yoshi was always meant to be. Not a tool to be used, but a friend choosing to help. And there was one more element that made Yoshi special from the very beginning. He came in colors. while the default Yoshi, the one we think of first, was green with his orange shoes and red saddle. Super Mario World introduced players to red Yoshis, blue Yoshis, and yellow Yoshis. Each had special abilities tied to the Koopa shells they could hold in their mouths. A red Yoshi could spit fireballs. A blue Yoshi could grow wings and fly. A yellow Yoshi could create damaging dust clouds when he landed from a jump. These color variations weren't just cosmetic. They represented possibility, variety, the idea that there wasn't just one Yoshi, but an entire species, an entire community of these gentle dinosaurs living on their island. When Super Mario World released in November 1990 in Japan and the following year in other territories, players discovered this new companion and fell immediately in love. Yoshi was everything Miyamoto had dreamed he would be. He made platforming more dynamic, added new strategies, created moments of joy and relief when you found him in a level. But more than the mechanics, more than the gameplay implications, Yoshi had personality. The little dance he did when you won a level, the cheerful sounds he made, the way he seemed so happy to help, all of it combined to create something that felt genuinely warm. In a medium often defined by conflict and challenge, Yoshi represented pure friendliness. But this was only the beginning. Because while Yoshi had finally been born in Super Mario World, his true origin story, the moment that would define him not just as a companion, but as a guardian, still lay ahead. That story would take us back in time, to a moment before Mario and Luigi had grown up, before they had become the heroes we know. It would show us why Yoshi mattered, why he had always mattered, why the universe itself seemed to conspire to place him in exactly the right location at exactly the right time. The dream was about to deepen. The guardian was about to meet those he was meant to protect. Picture a sky at twilight, that strange in-between time when day hasn't quite released its hold, but night is already reaching up with gentle fingers. Against this canvas of soft pinks and deep blues, something moves. A stork, white wings beating steadily, flies through the air with determination and purpose. In its beak, wrapped in soft bundles, it carries two baby brothers. Twins, barely born, being delivered to their parents somewhere in the world below. It is a moment of perfect peace, of trust in the natural order of things. The babies sleep. The stork flies on. Nothing should go wrong. But in the shadows between clouds, something watches. A figure on a broomstick, robes fluttering in the wind, eyes fixed on the precious cargo the stork carries. This is Kamek, a magic Koopa of considerable power and even greater foresight. Through magic or prophecy or some gift of sight that peers into possible futures, Kamek has seen what these two babies will become. He has seen them grow into heroes who will stand against the Koopa Kingdom again and again. He has seen them bring down castles, rescue princesses, thwart invasions, and emerge victorious from impossible odds. He has seen the end of his young master's ambitions, time after time, always at the hands of these two children. This cannot be allowed to happen. If the future can be seen, perhaps the future can be changed. Perhaps preventing the prophecy is as simple as preventing these children from ever reaching their parents, from ever growing up in safety and love, from ever becoming the heroes they are destined to be. And so, as the stork flies peacefully through the darkening sky, Kamek strikes. The attack is sudden, violent, shattering the tranquil moment with magical force. The stork, shocked and terrified, tries to flee, but Kamek is faster, more powerful, more determined. In the chaos of the assault, Kamek manages to snatch one of the babies. Baby Luigi, wrapped in his green blanket, disappears into Kamek's grasp, already on his way to imprisonment in a distant castle. The stork, battered and desperate, tries to protect the other child, But in the confusion, in the panic, the worst happens. Baby Mario falls. There is something uniquely terrible about falling. The loss of control, the certainty of impact, the helplessness as the world rushes past and nothing can stop what's coming. For a baby, this would be catastrophic. The fall seems to last forever, baby Mario tumbling through air, past clouds, toward the ground that will surely end everything before anything has truly begun. The prophecy Kamek feared will not come true because the hero will never survive to fulfill it. Sometimes destiny can be undone with something as simple as letting someone fall. But the world is full of miracles, especially in places where magic still breathes through the very ground. And on this particular morning, on an island where dinosaurs of every color live in harmony with nature and each other, one particular green Yoshi decided to take a walk. There was no particular reason for this walk, no urgent errand, no specific destination. Just a pleasant stroll through the forest, enjoying the fresh air and the morning light filtering through the trees. Yoshi walked slowly, contentedly, completely unaware that he was walking into destiny itself. The fall ended not with impact, not with tragedy, not with the snuffing out of a light before it could properly shine, but with a gentle landing. Baby Mario, still wrapped in his red blanket, still somehow asleep despite everything, came to rest on Yoshi's back. On that saddle shell that fit so perfectly, as if it had been designed for exactly this purpose. The baby was safe. The baby was comfortable. The baby, impossibly, continued to sleep, unaware of how close he had come to disaster, unaware that he had been saved by pure chance or fate, or something beyond either. Yoshi stopped walking. There was something on his back, something small and warm. He turned his head carefully, curiously, and saw the baby. Red cap, blue overalls, peaceful sleeping face. And clutched in tiny fingers, crumpled but still legible, a map. Yoshi couldn't read maps, didn't know where this child had come from or how he had arrived, but he understood, in the way that kind hearts always understand, that something important had just happened. This baby needed help. This baby needed to be kept safe. This baby needed to get home. Yoshi headed back to where his friends lived, moving carefully so as not to wake the child on his back. When the other Yoshis saw what he had found, when they gathered around, Maisin and Sono looked at the map, when they put together the pieces of this strange morning, they made a decision. A simple decision, really. The kind that good people make without needing to think too hard about it. They would help. All of them. They would take turns carrying baby Mario across their island, following the map to wherever it led, reuniting this child with whoever was waiting for him. It was the right thing to do. It was the only thing to do. They didn't know about Kamek's prophecy. They didn't know about the desperate kidnapping, about the imprisoned brother, about the Magic Koopa who even now was dispatching toadies to search the island and retrieve the child who had slipped through his fingers. The Yoshis simply saw a baby who needed protection, and they made themselves into guardians. They made themselves into a relay team of heroes, each one taking their turn, each one doing their part. Green Yoshi, red Yoshi, yellow Yoshi, light blue Yoshi, pink Yoshi, and more. All of them, ready to carry this child through whatever challenges lay ahead. This is where Yoshi's true story begins. Not as Mario's steed in Super Mario World, but here, in Super Mario World 2. Yoshi's Island, in this moment of perfect, accidental heroism. Here, Yoshi transforms from companion to protector. Here, the guardian finds his purpose. And here, we understand that Yoshi was not simply lucky to be in the right place at the right time. Somehow, in ways that transcend simple explanation, he was always meant to be there. The stork flying overhead, the moment of the attack, the precise trajectory of the fall. Yoshi deciding to take a walk at exactly that moment, in exactly that location. All of it aligned with impossible precision. Some might call it fate, others might call it narrative convenience. But in the quiet of this night, as we consider the dream of the Guardian, perhaps we can call it something else. Perhaps we can call it love. The universe itself, loving these characters, loving these stories, making sure that when a hero fell, there would be someone gentle and strong and true to catch him, making sure that before Mario ever saved a princess, someone had saved Mario. The journey that followed would test Yoshi in ways no simple stroll through Super Mario World ever had. This wasn't about reaching the end of a level or defeating a boss, though both of those things would certainly happen. This was about protection, about keeping this baby safe through an entire island of dangers, through caves and castles, through haunted forests and volcanic mountains. And the game, released in 1995 for the Super NES, would introduce mechanics that perfectly captured this protective instinct. When Yoshi took damage, Baby Mario wouldn't simply disappear, claimed by the game's failure state. Instead, he would float away in a bubble, crying loudly, desperately, while a timer counted down. Yoshi had a few precious seconds to retrieve the baby before Kamek's toadies arrived to snatch him away. Those seconds were agonizing. The crying pierced through any sense of calm, creating genuine panic, genuine desperation to reach the child and bring him back to safety. It was brilliant game design, transforming the failure state into something emotionally resonant. You didn't just lose a life. You failed to protect something precious. You let down someone who was depending on you. But it was Yoshi's new abilities that truly defined this adventure. The flutter jump, that distinctive mid-air hover where Yoshi would kick his legs rapidly to extend a jump or slow a fall, became his signature move. It spoke to his gentleness, his refusal to simply plummet like heavier characters. He moved through the air with grace, with consideration, always giving the player one more chance to make the right choice, to reach the right platform. The eggs he could create by swallowing enemies became both weapon and puzzle tool, able to be aimed with a targeting reticle and bounced off surfaces to reach distant switches or collect distant items. Each egg was carefully aimed, thoughtfully placed. Yoshi fought, yes, but he fought with precision rather than brute force. The game also introduced the ground pound, letting Yoshi slam down from above to drive stakes into the ground, break through certain floors, or defeat enemies below. And perhaps most charming of all, Yoshi could transform. Morphing bubbles would change him into a helicopter, able to rise upward through currents, or a submarine, navigating underwater passages, or a train, barreling along rails with wheels and momentum. These transformations were temporary, whimsical, part of the game's overall aesthetic, which rejected realism in favor of pure imagination. Because Yoshi's Island didn't just tell a story about protection, it created a visual style unlike anything gaming had seen before. The graphics looked hand-drawn, sketched with crayons and markers, as if the whole adventure was taking place inside a children's storybook come to life. Colors bled slightly beyond their borders. Background elements had a soft, scribbled quality. Everything felt warm, tactile, imaginative in the way that children's art is imaginative. This aesthetic, which some players initially resisted, has aged beautifully. It makes Yoshi's Island timeless. It makes the whole adventure feel like a bedtime story being read aloud by someone who loves you. The worlds they traveled through together, Baby Mario and his rotating team of Yoshi Guardians, took them across the entirety of their island home, through flower gardens where everything seemed peaceful and simple, through caves that required careful navigation and clever egg tosses, past ghost houses where boos giggled and floors creaked ominously, up to mountain peaks where the air grew thin and platforms grew scarce, into castles where Kamek enhanced his minions with magic, turning ordinary enemies into boss fights that filled entire rooms. Always forward, always closer, to baby Luigi. Always toward the reunion that had to happen, the completion of the journey, the moment when these two brothers could be together again. Kamek appeared before several of these boss encounters, taunting Yoshi, warning him to give up, insisting that the baby would never be returned. His voice carried frustration and anger, but also a hint of fear. Because Kamek could still see the future, and with every world Yoshi conquered, with every boss defeated, that future became more certain. These children would grow up. They would become heroes. And Kamek, for all his power and foresight, could not stop it, could not prevent it, could only watch as his own desperate attempt to change destiny instead helped confirm it. At the final castle. After journeying through 6 worlds of challenges and wonder, Yoshi finally confronted baby Bowser. The young prince of the Koopas, barely more than a toddler himself, still in diapers, still prone to tantrums, but dangerous nonetheless, especially when Kamek's magic transformed him into a towering giant, filling the screen with threats and fireballs and ground-shaking stomps. The battle required everything Yoshi had learned, every skill he had developed, every ounce of courage he possessed. This was for baby Mario. This was for baby Luigi. This was for getting everyone home safe. When baby Bowser fell, when Kamek's magic couldn't save his master from defeat, the path finally opened. Baby Luigi was freed from his magical prison. The stork recovered from his ordeal, ready to complete the delivery that had been so violently interrupted. The two baby brothers were reunited, could finally be together, could finally be delivered to the parents who were waiting for them. And Yoshi, gentle Yoshi, faithful Yoshi, said goodbye to the children he had protected. Watched them fly away toward their future, toward all the adventures they would have, all the castles they would storm, all the princesses they would save. He didn't know that he would see them again. Didn't know that years later, on another adventure, a grown Mario would find a green dinosaur trapped in an egg and free him and ride on his back. Maybe it was the same Yoshi. Maybe it was a different member of the species. The games have never been particularly clear about the continuity, about whether Yoshi is a specific character or a species designation. But in a way, it doesn't matter. What matters is that in the moment when it counted most, when a baby fell from the sky and the future of the entire Mushroom Kingdom hung in the balance of whether that baby survived, Yoshi was there. The Guardian had performed his most important duty long before anyone knew he was a Guardian at all. And now, as the stars twinkled over Yoshi's Island and the adventure came to its close, as the credits rolled and the music played its gentle victory theme, Yoshi could rest, could know that he had done something that mattered, could dream peaceful dreams, unaware of all the other adventures that still awaited him, all the other times he would be needed, all the other moments when someone would fall and he would be there to catch them. But before we follow Yoshi into those other stories, there is one more chapter of this origin that deserves our attention. One more time when the island fell under threat, when babies needed protection, when Yoshi's gentle strength would be called upon. Because the story of Yoshi's Island did not end with that first game. It continued, expanded, showed us even more of this world and these guardians. Time is a strange thing in the Mushroom Kingdom. Events happen out of order, continuity bends and flexes like a tree in wind, and cause and effect maintain only the loosest of relationships. So when we speak of what happened before and what happened after, we do so with the understanding that these are stories, not historical records. They exist to be experienced, not to be plotted on a rigid timeline. Shortly after the events of the original Yoshi's Island, in a story told in Yoshi's New Island, we discover that the stork made a mistake. The house where baby Mario and baby Luigi were delivered was not actually their parents' home. An honest error, easily made when you're a stork still recovering from a magical assault and probably suffering from some kind of avian PTSD. Upon realizing his mistake, the stork retrieves the babies and sets off once more to find their actual parents. Because, apparently, the address on a delivery that important wasn't clearly marked. Or perhaps the Mushroom Kingdom just has really confusing geography. And of course, Kamek attacks again. Because if at first you don't succeed in preventing a prophecy, attack the same stork carrying the same babies a second time. This time, baby Luigi is once again captured, but baby Mario once again falls, landing on what the game calls Egg Island, another home to the Yoshis. Which raises interesting questions about just how many islands full of Yoshis exist, but let's not get too caught up in the logistics. The important thing is that once again, Yoshi is there when baby Mario falls. Once again, the Guardians rally to protect this child. Once again, the journey begins. Yoshi's New Island, released in 2014 for the Nintendo 3DS, followed the same basic formula as the original, but with new mechanics. Yoshi could now eat Mega Guys and Metal Guys, creating enormous Mega Egg Dozers that could destroy blocks and enemies with devastating force, or Metal Egg Dozers that prevented flutter jumping but allowed underwater travel. These weren't just bigger eggs, they were alternate approaches to solving problems, different tools for different situations. The game also introduced new vehicle transformations: Hot Air Balloon Yoshi floating through updrafts, Bobsled Yoshi sliding down icy slopes, Minecart Yoshi rattling along underground tracks. But the most significant addition was the Yoshi Star power-ups. Golden Yoshi Stars allowed Yoshi to run along walls, defying gravity itself. Red Yoshi Stars transformed him into a rocket, shooting horizontally through the air with incredible speed and power. These power-ups made Yoshi not just capable, but spectacular, turning platforming challenges into triumphant displays of ability. And in the final confrontation, after Baby Bowser was defeated, adult Bowser appeared through time itself, warping backward to avenge his younger self. The battle against this fully grown version of the Koopa King required Yoshi to use everything the game had taught, every skill accumulated across all the levels. It was spectacular and slightly ridiculous, and absolutely in keeping with the anything-goes nature of these stories. Then there was Yoshi's Island DS, released in 2006, which expanded the concept even further. This time, the story involved not just Baby Mario and Baby Luigi, but an entire collection of star children, babies who possessed incredible power within their hearts. Kamek and an adult Bowser traveled back in time to kidnap these star children, hoping to harness their power for evil purposes. Baby Peach, Baby Donkey Kong, Baby Wario, and even Baby Bowser himself all joined the adventure at various points, each providing unique abilities that changed how Yoshi navigated the world. Baby Mario allowed Yoshi to dash. Baby Peach provided a parasol that let them float on wind currents. Baby Donkey Kong could grab vines and chains. Baby Wario's magnet attracted coins and certain types of blocks. Even Baby Bowser, once he briefly joined the heroes before wandering off again, could launch destructive fireballs. The game became a puzzle about which baby to have riding on Yoshi's back, at which time, which combination of abilities would solve which challenges. It was clever, sometimes frustratingly so, requiring players to swap between babies frequently and think ahead about what obstacles were coming. What all these games shared, beyond their mechanics and aesthetics, was the core concept that had made the original Yoshi's Island so special. Yoshi as protector. Yoshi as the one who would not let harm come to those in his care. The crying that erupted when Baby Mario was hit, that timer counting down, those toadies waiting to steal him away, all of it reinforced that you weren't just trying to reach the end of a level, you were trying to keep someone safe. The games could be difficult, sometimes very difficult, with perfect scores requiring the collection of all flowers, all red coins, reaching the goal with full health and all 30 stars. But the difficulty came from trying to be a perfect guardian, from trying to ensure no harm came at all. And in those moments when you did fail, when you couldn't reach baby Mario in time and the toadies spirited him away, there was genuine regret. Not just frustration at losing a life and having to replay a section, but actual sadness at having let him down. Few games create that emotional connection, that sense that the character you're protecting is more than just a health bar or a pass-fail condition. But Yoshi's Island, in all its iterations, understood something important about guardianship. It understood that protection isn't just about success. It's about caring, about the weight of responsibility, about the bond between protector and protected. These games showed us Yoshi's Island as a living place, full of varied environments and hidden secrets. The castles weren't just obstacle courses, but locations with history and atmosphere. The caves felt genuinely mysterious. The mountains were appropriately majestic. And the Yoshis themselves, in their various colors, and with their shared commitment to helping these babies reach safety, felt like a real community. Not just identical copies of the same character, but individuals choosing to work together for a common good. There was also something poignant about these stories existing as prequels, about knowing that the babies Yoshi was protecting would grow up to be heroes in their own right, would face dangers far greater than anything on Yoshi's Island, would save the world again and again. Yoshi was giving them the chance to grow up at all, was ensuring the future could happen, and in that sense, every adventure Mario ever had, every princess he ever saved, every Bowser he ever defeated, all of it traced back to that first moment. That fall from the sky, that gentle landing on a green dinosaur's back, that decision by the Yoshis to help. But Yoshi's story didn't remain locked in the past, didn't only exist in these prequel tales of babies and guardianship. There were other adventures, other times and places where Yoshi would be needed, other ways for the dream to unfold. There is something deeply unsettling about waking up to find that your world has been transformed into a storybook. Imagine it for a moment, if you will. You go to sleep in your home, surrounded by familiar three-dimensional reality, and you wake to find everything flattened, made of paper and cardboard, existing only on pages that can be turned. The sky is a painted backdrop. The ground you walk on might as well be construction paper. Everything you knew has been reduced to craft supplies and imagination. It would be terrifying, this kind of transformation. This rewriting of reality itself into something lesser, something made rather than grown. This is what happened to Yoshi's Island in the story told by Yoshi's Story. Baby Bowser, young prince of the Koopas, looked upon the happiness of the Yoshis and became consumed with jealousy. They had something he could not possess, could not purchase, could not seize through force. They had the super happy tree, a magnificent entity that bore fruit of every kind and radiated joy itself. This tree was the center of their world, the source of their perpetual contentment. The Yoshis lived in harmony beneath its branches, eating its fruit, basking in its presence, genuinely and simply, happy in a way that baby Bowser, for all his privilege and power, was not. So he stole it, used his magic to transform the entire island into a pop-up storybook, flattening reality itself out of spite and need. And without the super happy tree, without its fruit and presence and radiance, the Yoshis fell into gloom. Adults who had known nothing but joy found themselves, for the first time, genuinely sad. The emotional weight was crushing. Everything looked different. Everything felt different. The island itself had become a cage made of pages. but 6 eggs survived the transformation. Perhaps they were too new, too recently laid, still protected by their shells. Perhaps the magic simply missed them in its haste. Or perhaps the world itself, knowing what was coming, knowing what had been lost, made sure that some hope remained. When these 6 eggs hatched, 6 baby Yoshis emerged into a world that should have been beautiful and was instead all wrong. They could tell, immediately, that something was broken, could feel the absence of the happiness that should have been their birthright, could see their elders transformed into gloom. The baby Yoshis looked at each other, these newborns barely minutes old, and made a decision that would have done their ancestors proud, would have made those Yoshis who had protected baby Mario and baby Luigi nod in recognition. They would fix this. They would find the super happy tree wherever baby Bowser had hidden it. They would restore their world. They would not accept this diminished paper existence as permanent. They were too young to be wise, too inexperienced to know how dangerous this would be, but they were not too young to be brave. Released in 1997 for the Nintendo 64, Yoshi's Story was Nintendo's first Yoshi platformer on their new console. It represented a significant departure from Yoshi's Island in many ways. Instead of the hand-drawn crayon aesthetic, everything was rendered in beautiful pre-rendered 3D graphics that maintained a soft, crafted quality. Worlds looked like they were made from fabric, felt, cardboard, and other tactile materials. It was like playing inside the most elaborate diorama ever constructed, where every surface had texture and weight, where nothing was smooth or simple, but instead was rich with detail. The 6 baby Yoshis, green, red, yellow, blue, pink, and light blue, had to progress through 6 pages of the storybook. Each page contained 4 different courses, but you only needed to complete 1 course per page to advance. This created a branching structure, a sense of choice about which path to take. Some courses were easier, others harder. Some were full of bright colors and accessible platforms, others dark and maze-like and challenging. The player could choose their experience to some degree, could select what kind of story they wanted to tell. The objective in each course was simple, yet perfect for the narrative. Eat 30 pieces of fruit. Fruit restored happiness. Fruit fed the joy that had been stolen. By consuming fruit, the baby Yoshis would become happy themselves, and that happiness would spread, would push back against the gloom, would begin to undo what baby Bowser had done. Each Yoshi had a favorite fruit type, matched to their color. Green Yoshi loved watermelons. Red Yoshi preferred apples. Yellow Yoshi craved bananas. Eating their favorite fruit restored more happiness, made the smile meter in the corner of the screen bloom more fully. But all Yoshis loved melons, the rarest and most valuable fruit, worth more happiness than anything else. There was something pure about this objective. You weren't racing against a clock. You weren't trying to accumulate points for their own sake. You were eating fruit because fruit is delicious and life-giving and joy-inducing. You were taking the time to appreciate good things in a world that had been stripped of goodness. And the game rewarded thoroughness over speed, quality over quantity. Finding 30 melons, the ideal fruit, required skill and exploration and patience. But doing so maximized happiness, maximized the score, maximized the healing of the world. The baby Yoshis could still use their tongues to grab enemies and fruit, could still create eggs, though now the eggs could be aimed and thrown with even greater precision, could still flutter jump, hovering in that distinctive way, could still ground pound to drive through certain floors or activate switches. All the abilities from Yoshi's Island remained, adapted to this new 3D rendered but still side-scrolling adventure. The game felt familiar and new simultaneously, like returning to a place you knew but finding it decorated differently. As the baby Yoshis progressed through the pages of the storybook, they encountered obstacles and enemies that tested their resolve. There were shy guys of various colors, some walking normally, some flying, some hiding in spots that required careful egg throws to dislodge. There were piranha plants that snapped at anyone who came too close. There were platforms that moved or disappeared, gaps that needed precise jumps to cross, areas where the background would shift and change as you progressed, revealing new depths to the pop-up world. And there were friendly characters who helped. Miss Warp could teleport Yoshi to different parts of a level, skipping forward or accessing secret areas. Poochie, the loyal dog who had appeared in Yoshi's Island, was here too, able to sniff out hidden items and provide a safe platform to stand on even over dangerous ground. These helpers reinforced that even in a world transformed by jealousy and spite, even in a reality flattened into pages, kindness persisted. Help was available. You were not alone. The boss battles, scattered throughout the pages, required Yoshi to use eggs against enlarged enemies, hitting specific weak points, dodging attack patterns. These battles had a puzzle-like quality, requiring observation and timing more than frantic action. You had to watch, learn the pattern, strike at the right moment. It was the same philosophy that had governed Yoshi from the beginning: thoughtfulness over aggression, precision over brute force. When the baby Yoshis finally reached Baby Bowser's castle, confronting him in his throne room with the stolen Super Happy Tree visible in the background, the final battle unfolded. Baby Bowser threw everything he could at them, fireballs and ground pounds, and all the tantrum-driven fury a spoiled prince could muster. But the baby Yoshis had come too far, had eaten too much fruit, had been made too happy by their journey to be stopped now. They defeated him, sent him tumbling, reclaimed the tree. And with the tree returned, with its happiness radiating once more, the storybook transformation began to reverse. Reality returned, dimension by dimension, texture by texture. The island unflattened, became real again, solid and growing and alive. The adult Yoshis recovered from their gloom, joy returning to faces that had forgotten how to smile. The 6 baby Yoshis, these newborns who had fixed an entire world, celebrated together beneath the branches of the Super Happy Tree, eating fruit and laughing and being exactly as happy as they deserved to be. Yoshi's story was notable for being the first game to use what would become Yoshi's definitive voice. Kazumi Totaka, the composer who had created much of the game's music, also provided the voice for Yoshi, and these squeaky, cheerful sounds replaced the older sound effects that had been used previously. This voice would become iconic, would be used in every subsequent Yoshi appearance, would become as much a part of the character as the green scales or red saddle. It was perfect, simple, joyful, instantly recognizable, able to convey emotion without ever forming words. The game's aesthetic, that felt and fabric world rendered in pre-rendered 3D, was divisive at release. Some players wanted something that looked more like Yoshi's Island, with its crayon drawings and hand-sketched charm. Others found the new style too cute, too young, not challenging enough. The game was shorter than its predecessor, could be completed more quickly, and its difficulty curve was gentler. Critics called it too easy, called it a game for children, and not in the complimentary way they might have said such a thing about Yoshi's Island. But time has been kind to Yoshi's story. Its aesthetic choices, once criticized, now appear ahead of their time, presaging the handcrafted world style that games would embrace in later years. The Yoshi's Woolly World games, the Little Big Planet series, countless other titles that would find beauty in textured, tactile worlds, all owe something to the path Yoshi's story walked first. And its gentler difficulty, its focus on happiness and fruit, and fixing a broken world through simple joy, these things resonate differently now than they did in 1997. Sometimes we need stories that aren't about combat and challenge. Sometimes we need to just eat fruit in a beautiful world until everything feels better. The dream of the Guardian continued here, transformed into something new. Yoshi wasn't protecting babies this time. He was protecting happiness itself, protecting the idea that the world should be a place of joy rather than gloom, protecting the belief that when something wrong happens, even something as fundamental as reality being rewritten into pages, it can be fixed. Not through violence or domination, but through the simple act of persisting, of choosing happiness, of eating 30 pieces of fruit and moving forward and refusing to accept diminishment. But Yoshi's adventures were not confined to his island home, to the protection of babies, or the restoration of stolen happiness. As the years passed and new games were made, Yoshi appeared in many other contexts, many other stories. He became not just a guardian of babies or happiness, but a reliable presence throughout the expanding Mushroom Kingdom and beyond. Let us follow him now into these other roles, these other moments where he was needed. In Super Mario 64, when Mario arrived at Princess Peach's castle, only to find her kidnapped once again by Bowser, players could collect all 120 Power Stars hidden throughout the paintings and locked doors of that strange building. Upon achieving this perfect completion, something wonderful happened. The cannons outside the castle activated, letting Mario blast himself onto the roof. And there, sitting peacefully in the sunshine, was Yoshi. Green scales, red saddle, orange shoes, exactly as he had always been. He congratulated Mario on his dedication, thanked him for playing the game, and delivered a message from the developers themselves. It was a cameo, brief and non-interactive, but it felt significant. Even in this 3D world, even in this very different kind of adventure, Yoshi was there at the end, acknowledging Mario's achievement. The Nintendo DS remake, Super Mario 64 DS, expanded Yoshi's role dramatically. He became a fully playable character, starting the adventure before Mario was even unlocked. Yoshi could run through the castle grounds, jump into paintings, tackle the challenges that waited inside. He couldn't punch or kick like Mario, couldn't fly like Luigi with his backflip jump, couldn't power through obstacles like Wario. Instead, Yoshi could eat enemies, creating eggs that hovered behind him and could be thrown at other threats or targets. He could flutter jump naturally, giving him unique mobility. And when he found a power-up hat from another character, he could temporarily take on their appearance and abilities, borrowing their strength while retaining his own essence. In Super Mario Sunshine, released for the GameCube in 2002, Yoshi returned in a more dynamic role. On the tropical Isle Delfino, Mario could find Yoshi eggs scattered throughout the levels. Spraying these eggs with his Flood water pack would cause Yoshi to hatch, ready to help. These Yoshis could change color based on the fruit they ate, and each color provided different juice-spitting abilities. Orange Yoshis could dissolve certain platforms. Pink Yoshis could turn invisible things visible. Purple Yoshis could warp through space when they ate special fruit. It was creative and practical, giving players new tools to solve environmental puzzles. But there was a catch. These Yoshis couldn't touch water. The moment they did, they would dissolve, vanishing in a disturbing way that suggested they were somehow made of the same paint-like substance that plagued the island. It was strange, slightly dark, and never explained. Super Mario Galaxy 2 brought Yoshi back into space itself. Encased in glowing eggs scattered across various galaxies, Yoshi could be freed and ridden through sections of levels. He had new power-ups tied to specific fruits. The Dash Pepper made him run extremely fast, able to sprint up steep slopes or across water. The Blimp Fruit let him inflate like a balloon and float upward. The Bulb Berry illuminated dark areas and made invisible platforms appear. These abilities were temporary, tied to specific level designs, used to solve particular challenges. Yoshi felt less like a permanent companion and more like a special tool brought out for specific situations. But the joy of riding him through alien landscapes, of using his tongue to grapple onto flower hooks and swing across gaps, of flutter jumping between tiny planetoids, all of that felt magical in ways that justified his presence. The new Super Mario Bros. Series, bringing Mario back to pure side-scrolling gameplay across multiple systems, included Yoshis in various capacities. In some games, they appeared rarely in specific levels designed around their abilities. In others, they were more common, rideable throughout multiple worlds. The games maintained the traditional mechanics: eating enemies, creating eggs, flutter jumping, ground pounding. Red, yellow, and blue Yoshis returned with their special abilities from Super Mario World, breathing fire or flying or creating tremors. These games were straightforward, nostalgic, designed to remind players of the original Super Mario World while incorporating modern design sensibilities. Yoshi fit naturally into this mission, being himself a reminder of that original adventure, that first time he appeared and changed everything. But Mario's adventures were only part of Yoshi's story during these years. There were other places he appeared, other roles he filled. The Paper Mario series, with its emphasis on story and characters and turn-based RPG combat, included Yoshis in various ways. In the original Paper Mario for Nintendo 64, Mario visited a village of Yoshis on Lava Lava Island, helping rescue Yoshi children who had become lost in the nearby jungle. These Yoshis were colorful, distinct, named characters with personalities and problems. They weren't just generic friendly dinosaurs, but a community with its own culture and concerns. In Paper Mario, the 1,000-Year Door for GameCube, Yoshi became something even more special. During Chapter 3, set in the underground fighting arena called the Glitz Pit, Mario encountered a Yoshi egg at a hot dog stand. The vendor, Mr. Hoggle, was chasing it around, planning to use it for his signature dish. Mario caught the egg, and it began following him, not yet hatched, but clearly alive and waiting for the right moment. That moment came during a battle against armored enemies that Mario couldn't damage. The egg hatched, and a baby Yoshi emerged, immediately ready to help. This Yoshi was unique in several ways. First, the player could name him, creating a personal connection that other partners didn't have. Second, his color was determined by how long the egg had been in your possession before hatching, cycling through green, red, blue, orange, pink, black, and white, based on a 20-minute timer. This meant every player's Yoshi might be different, might represent different aesthetic choices. Third, and most importantly, this Yoshi called Mario Gonzalez. Gonzalez was Mario's fighting name in the Glitz Pit, the persona he adopted while working his way through the ranks of fighters. The Yoshi hatched knowing only this name, believing it to be his partner's true identity. Throughout the entire game, through every battle and puzzle and story beat, Yoshi continued calling Mario Gonzalez. It became endearing, this misunderstanding, this baby who didn't know any better and didn't need to. At the end of the adventure, the Yoshi seemed to understand that his partner's real name was Mario, but declared that he would always be Gonzalez to him. It was a small moment of genuine emotion in a game full of humor and heart. As a partner in battle, this Yoshi was devastatingly effective. His attacks hit multiple times, perfect for breaking through enemy defenses. Ground Pound could damage any ground-based foe. Gulp let him swallow an enemy whole and then spit them at another enemy, turning foes into projectiles. Mini Egg created multiple weak eggs that confused and damaged everything they touched. And Stampede, his most powerful move, summoned a whole herd of Yoshis to trample everything on screen. Beyond combat, riding Yoshi in the overworld let Mario move faster and execute a kind of flutter jump to cross larger gaps. He was useful in every aspect of the game, beloved by players who appreciated both his mechanical benefits and his personality. Super Smash Bros., Nintendo's crossover fighting game series, featured Yoshi as a playable character from the very beginning. In the original game for Nintendo 64, released in 1999, Yoshi was part of the starting roster, available immediately. His moveset drew from his various abilities: egg-laying, ground-pounding, spinning tail attacks. But what made him truly unique was his shield. While other characters created bubbles of energy around themselves when defending, Yoshi created an egg. A full egg that surrounded him completely, impervious to shield stab attacks that could hit other characters from odd angles. This egg couldn't shrink like normal shields. It simply grew darker as it weakened, and if it broke, Yoshi would be stunned just like anyone else. His second jump was extraordinary. Rather than a simple extra hop, Yoshi would kick his legs frantically, gaining tremendous height and distance while being temporarily resistant to knockback. During this jump, Yoshi had armor that would absorb up to a certain amount of damage without causing him to flinch or fall. It was one of the best recovery options in the game, letting him return to the stage from distances that would doom most other characters. The trade-off was that his up special move, Egg Throw, didn't provide much vertical recovery itself. It was a projectile attack, useful for zoning and attacking from a distance, but not for saving Yoshi from falling. He relied entirely on that spectacular second jump to stay alive. This design philosophy continued through all subsequent Smash Bros. Games. Yoshi remained, in every iteration, the character with the amazing second jump and minimal recovery options. The character whose shield worked differently, whose speed and power had to be balanced against his limitations. In Super Smash Bros. Melee, he gained a final smash, Super Dragon. When activated, Yoshi would sprout angelic wings and breathe fire, becoming temporarily invincible while raining destruction on his opponents. It was spectacular, powerful, exactly the kind of over-the-top ability that final smashes were meant to be. Throughout the series' evolution, through Brawl, through Smash 4, through Ultimate, Yoshi's placement on tier lists varied. Sometimes he was considered mid-tier, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. Expert players would discover new techniques with him, ways to use his unique properties to devastating effect. Double jump canceling, where Yoshi would cancel his second jump into an aerial attack, became a hallmark of advanced Yoshi play. The community's understanding of how to use him effectively grew more sophisticated with each game, with each tournament, with each player who decided to specialize in this green dinosaur who fought so differently from everyone else. His alternate colors in Smash Bros. Reference the different Yoshi types from Super Mario World and Yoshi's Story. Red, blue, yellow, pink, light blue, purple, black, white. Players could choose any of these colors, making their Yoshi distinctive, personal. In Ultimate, a special alternate costume based on Yoshi's crafted world appeared, giving him a textured, yarn-like appearance that made him look handmade, sewn together from felt and fabric. It was charming, popular, a celebration of Yoshi's long history of appearing in crafted, tactile worlds. Mario Kart, that racing series that brought together characters from across Nintendo's franchises, featured Yoshi in every single installment. From the original Super Mario Kart on SNES to the latest Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on Switch, Yoshi has been there, speeding around tracks, throwing items, competing for first place. He's typically classified as either a lightweight or middleweight character, fast and maneuverable, able to take corners well, but vulnerable to being knocked around by heavier racers. His carts and bikes often feature egg decorations, green and white spotted shells that reference his signature ability. Mario Party games, those board game-style competitive adventures where 4 players roll dice and compete in mini-games, always had a slot for Yoshi. He hopped around boards, collected stars and coins, competed in races and puzzles and tests of skill. The mini-games sometimes referenced his specific abilities, like using his tongue to grab items or his flutter jump to reach platforms. He was reliably fun to play as, his animations cheerful and energetic, his voice clips encouraging and excited. Sports games too. Mario Tennis had Yoshi serving and volleying with surprising finesse. Mario Golf showed him sinking putts and driving balls down fairways. Baseball, soccer, basketball, any sport that Mario and his friends participated in, Yoshi was there too, adapting to each game's mechanics, learning each sport's strategies, competing with the same determination he brought to protecting babies or reclaiming stolen happiness. In all these appearances, across all these genres and games, Yoshi maintained his essential character. He was kind. He was helpful. He was brave when bravery was needed, gentle when gentleness was appropriate. He could compete when the situation called for competition, but there was never anything mean-spirited about it. He raced for the joy of racing. He fought in Smash Bros. Without ever seeming truly violent. He played tennis like someone who genuinely enjoyed tennis, not like someone trying to humiliate opponents. This consistency of character across so many different contexts speaks to something fundamental about who Yoshi is. He isn't defined by any single game or role. He's defined by a temperament, a way of being in the world. Helpful, cheerful, competent without being boastful, strong without being aggressive. In an industry full of characters designed to be cool or edgy or tough, Yoshi remained unabashedly sweet, and players loved him for it, still love him for it, will always love him for it. Because we all need someone like Yoshi in our lives, someone who shows up when we fall, who protects us when we're vulnerable, who helps us reach places we couldn't reach alone, someone who doesn't need to be dark or complicated to be interesting, who finds strength in kindness rather than cruelty. Yoshi has been that someone for over 30 years now, across dozens of games, across hundreds of levels and battles and races. He's been there, steady and true, exactly as gentle as he needs to be, exactly as strong as he's required to be. The dream continues. The Guardian watches. And we, drifting into sleep, can rest knowing that when heroes fall, there is always someone ready to catch them. There is magic in a voice that needs no words, in sounds that convey emotion directly, bypassing language entirely, speaking to something more fundamental than grammar or vocabulary. When Kazumi Totaka recorded the voice of Yoshi for Yoshi's Story in 1997, he created something that would transcend the game itself, that would become inseparable from the character, that would define how millions of players around the world understood this green dinosaur's personality. Before Totaka's recordings, Yoshi's vocalizations were simple sound effects, synthesized noises that served their purpose but lacked warmth. There was a sound when he stuck out his tongue, a sound when he jumped, a sound when he took damage. Functional, yes, but not expressive. Not alive in the way that a proper voice could make a character alive. Totaka, already a respected composer at Nintendo, brought something different. He brought himself into the recording booth and gave Yoshi a voice that was unmistakably, undeniably happy. Yoshi. The character's name, spoken with such enthusiasm that you couldn't help but smile. That was the primary vocalization, the sound that appeared most often, sometimes questioning, Yoshi, sometimes triumphant, Yoshi. sometimes just contentedly acknowledging, Yoshi. It was versatile, capable of conveying a surprising range of emotions through nothing more than tone and inflection. But there were other sounds too. Little grunts of effort when jumping or ground pounding, excited exclamations when collecting fruit or defeating enemies, a distinctive gulping sound when eating something. All of it came together to create a voice that felt childlike without being infantilizing, simple without being simple-minded, joyful without being naive. Yoshi sounded like someone who genuinely enjoyed existence, who found pleasure in the act of running and jumping and eating fruit, who approached challenges with curiosity rather than fear. This voice would be used in every subsequent Yoshi appearance, in all the Smash Bros. Games, in all the Mario Party and Mario Kart entries, in Paper Mario when text boxes weren't sufficient, in every adventure that featured Yoshi in any capacity. Totaka's recordings became the definitive sound of the character, instantly recognizable, beloved by players who had grown up hearing them. Even people who had never played a Yoshi game could likely identify that cheerful Yoshi if they heard it. What makes a good voice for a video game character? Partly it's about clarity, making sure players can distinguish this character's sounds from other characters' sounds. Partly it's about consistency, ensuring the voice matches the character's appearance and personality. But mostly, it's about creating something that doesn't grate after hundreds of hours of gameplay, something that players actively enjoy hearing rather than learning to tune out. Totaka succeeded on all these fronts. Even players who found Yoshi's games too easy, too childish, too simple, rarely complained about his voice, because that voice was perfect. It was exactly what Yoshi should sound like. The same care that went into Yoshi's voice went into every aspect of his audio design. The sound of his feet pattering across various surfaces, different textures producing different sounds. The whoosh of his flutter jump, those rapid kicks audible as a fluttering rhythm. The distinctive ping of collecting a red coin or a flower. The cascade of notes when finishing a level, moving from triumphant to celebratory to peaceful as the results screen appeared. All of this sonic design worked together to make Yoshi's games instantly identifiable by sound alone. You could leave the room while someone else was playing, and you would know within seconds that it was a Yoshi game, just from the audio. The music in Yoshi's games deserves attention too. From the very beginning, the soundtracks embraced a gentler aesthetic than many platformers. Super Mario World had featured jazzy, upbeat music, and Yoshi's theme from that game set a standard. Cheerful, bouncy, built around simple melodic ideas that were easy to hum and remember. When Yoshi's Island arrived, the music evolved. It became more varied, more atmospheric, more willing to create mood rather than just energy. The athletic theme was genuinely exciting, building momentum through repetition and instrumentation. The underground theme was mysterious, slightly tense, using minor keys and unusual sounds to create unease. The castle theme was appropriately menacing while still maintaining the game's overall warmth. Yoshi's story took this even further. The music in that game was famous, or perhaps infamous, for its use of children's voices singing the melody. Yoshi's song, which played in the game's first level and became the signature theme, featured kids singing Yoshi, Yoshi in rhythm with the music. Some found it unbearably cute, too saccharine, crossing the line from charming into annoying. Others found it perfectly appropriate for a game about baby dinosaurs eating fruit in a world made of felt and cardboard. Regardless of where you fell on that spectrum, you couldn't deny it was memorable. That song lodged itself in your brain and stayed there, bouncing around in your head long after you'd stopped playing. Kazumi Totaka himself composed much of the music for Yoshi's story, and he brought the same sensibility to the soundtrack that he had brought to the voice acting: simple, joyful, unafraid to be gentle. The music didn't try to be epic or cinematic. It tried to be pleasant, to enhance the experience of wandering through these crafted worlds, eating fruit, and solving gentle puzzles. And it succeeded brilliantly at that goal. Even players who criticized other aspects of the game often praised the music, recognizing that Totaka had created something special. This attention to audio design, to creating soundscapes that were as carefully crafted as the visuals, became a hallmark of Yoshi games. Later entries like Yoshi's Woolly World and Yoshi's Crafted World would continue this tradition, creating music that matched their aesthetic perfectly. Woolly World's soundtrack had a soft, warm quality, using instruments that sounded handmade, incorporating knitting and sewing sound effects into the rhythm. Crafted World's music was playful and exploratory, encouraging players to look around, to investigate, to discover the secrets hidden in its cardboard kingdoms. But perhaps what's most remarkable about all this audio design, all this care given to voice and music and sound effects, is what it says about how Nintendo understood Yoshi. They didn't see him as a secondary character, as someone who could be given minimal attention and shoved into games as an afterthought. They saw him as deserving the same level of craft and consideration as Mario himself. His voice needed to be perfect. His game's soundtracks needed to be memorable. Every sound he made needed to reinforce who he was and what he represented. Because sound is powerful. More than we often realize, sound shapes our emotional relationship with media. We remember the themes from games we loved. We can identify characters by their catchphrases and battle cries. We feel tension when music shifts into minor keys, relief when it resolves into major chords. And we develop affection for characters whose voices we enjoy hearing, whose presence in a game is accompanied by pleasant sounds rather than grating ones. Yoshi, with his cheerful exclamations and his gentle soundtracks, with his flutter jumps and fruit collection and happy endings, became someone whose presence was always welcome. You were never annoyed when Yoshi appeared in a game. You were never thinking, "Oh no, not another Yoshi section." Instead, you smiled. You remembered the other times you'd controlled this character, the other adventures you'd had together. You prepared to flutter jump and eat some enemies, and generally have a pleasant time in worlds that were designed to be pleasant to inhabit. And now, as you listen to this story late at night, as your eyes grow heavy and your thoughts begin to drift, perhaps you can almost hear him. That cheerful Yoshi echoing through your memory. That flutter of kicked legs as he hovers in midair. That gulp as he swallows an enemy and transforms it into an egg. All these sounds, all this joy, all this careful craft coming together to create someone who makes the world a little bit better just by being in it. The voice of simple joy. That's what Kazumi Totaka gave to Yoshi. And that's what Yoshi has given to us, game after game, year after year. A reminder that it's okay to be cheerful, to approach challenges with excitement rather than dread, to find genuine happiness in colorful worlds, and collected fruit and problems that can be solved with a well-thrown egg. We live in a complicated world, full of difficult problems and ambiguous choices. But for a little while, when we play as Yoshi, we can set all that aside. We can be simple. We can be joyful. We can be someone who knows that the right response to falling babies is to catch them, and the right response to stolen happiness is to reclaim it, and the right response to any challenge is a cheerful Yoshi, and a determination to flutter jump over whatever obstacles appear. The dream deepens, the guardian rests, and in the silence between one level and the next, in the pause between action and reflection, we understand something important. Yoshi has taught us how to be better. not through lectures or morals tacked onto stories, but through example. Through consistent, gentle, cheerful example. And maybe, when we wake tomorrow, we can carry a little bit of that with us into the real world. Maybe we can be a little bit more like Yoshi, helpful when help is needed, brave when bravery is required, and always, always ready to catch someone who falls. Close your eyes and picture Yoshi. You can see him clearly, can't you? The green scales, that bright, cheerful green that's somehow perfect, neither too dark nor too light. The red saddle shell on his back, smooth and curved and inviting. The orange shoes, practical footwear for someone who spends their life running and jumping. The large, expressive eyes, always wide and curious. The prominent nose, more like a reptilian snout than anything mammalian. The little spines running down his back, not quite spikes, softer than that, more like gentle bumps. And that tail, swishing behind him, used as a weapon in some games, always just visible in your peripheral vision as he walks. This image is burned into global consciousness. Yoshi is one of the most recognizable characters in all of gaming, instantly identifiable even to people who have never played his games. But this iconic appearance wasn't arrived at instantly. Like any great design, it evolved, refined itself through iterations, found its perfect form through trial and error, and the wisdom of designers who understood that character design is about more than just looking cool. It's about communicating personality at a glance. In Super Mario World, Yoshi's first appearance, his design was clearly that of a dinosaur. The neck was longer, more reptilian. The arms were small, almost vestigial, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex's arms. The overall silhouette emphasized his dinosaur heritage, making him look like something that could plausibly have lived in a prehistoric era, albeit a very friendly and non-threatening specimen. The sprite work was limited by the Super NES's capabilities, but within those limitations, the designers created something charming. The basic elements were all there: the saddle, the shoes, the green coloring, the expressive face. When Super Mario World 2: Yoshi's Island arrived, the design changed significantly. Yoshi became shorter, stouter, less dinosaur-like in his proportions. His arms grew much longer, more functional, with hands capable of manipulating objects and gesturing and throwing eggs with precision. This design shift reflected the change in Yoshi's role. He wasn't just a mount anymore. He was the protagonist, the character players would control for the entire adventure. He needed to be able to do more, to express more, to carry the weight of being the star. The longer arms helped with this immensely, making his animations more dynamic, giving the character more presence on screen. This Yoshi's Island design, sometimes called the classic Yoshi look, would persist through several games. It appeared in Yoshi's Story with slight modifications, in Yoshi's Island DS, in Yoshi's New Island. The proportions were consistent: shorter legs, longer arms, a rounder body, a more upright stance. When designing for the Nintendo 64 in Yoshi's Story, the team made Yoshi extremely round, with almost spherical features. His nose was round, his eyes were round, his hands and feet and body all emphasized circular shapes. This roundness conveyed softness, friendliness, approachability. There was nothing sharp or threatening about this Yoshi. He was someone you wanted to hug, not fight. But parallel to this classic Yoshi design, another version was developing. In Mario sports games and party games, in titles like Mario Tennis 64 and Mario Kart games, Yoshi began appearing in a slightly different form. This version stood more upright, less dinosaur-like, more anthropomorphic. His posture was better, his proportions more balanced between his body parts. This Yoshi looked like someone who could believably play tennis or drive a kart, someone whose physicality matched the activities he was performing. It was a subtle shift, but significant. When Super Smash Bros. Appeared, Yoshi's design for that series took a middle ground between the classic Yoshi's Island look and the more modern sports game appearance. He was upright, but still clearly the same character. The various Smash Bros. Games would gradually shift him toward a more consistently upright posture, with Smash 4 and Ultimate fully embracing the modern Yoshi design that had become standard in Mario games. This modern Yoshi, the version that appears in Super Mario Galaxy 2, New Super Mario Bros. U, Mario Kart 8, and all the recent titles, represents the culmination of decades of refinement. He's upright, but not completely vertical. He maintains his dinosaur heritage in his posture and movement, but is clearly capable of all the activities a Mario character needs to perform. His arms and legs are proportioned to look right, whether he's walking on all fours or standing up to throw something. His face is more expressive than ever, capable of showing a wide range of emotions through subtle changes in eye shape and mouth position. The color choices for Yoshi have always been important. That particular shade of green is carefully selected, bright enough to stand out against most backgrounds, saturated enough to feel vibrant and alive, but not so intense that it becomes garish. The red of his saddle shell provides a pleasing contrast, warm against cool. The orange of his shoes ties everything together, providing a third primary color that balances the composition. These three colors, green and red and orange, have become synonymous with Yoshi, appearing not just on the character himself, but on merchandise, logos, promotional materials, anywhere Yoshi needs to be represented iconically. But Yoshi comes in many colors, and each color variation has its own appeal. Red Yoshi, with blue shoes and a blue saddle, has a warmth and intensity to him. Blue Yoshi, with red shoes and a pink saddle, feels cool and calm. Yellow Yoshi, with green shoes and a pink saddle, radiates cheerfulness. Pink Yoshi, black Yoshi, white Yoshi, light blue Yoshi, orange Yoshi, purple Yoshi. Each brings something different to the table. Each has its fans. Each allows players to express preference and personality through their choice. Some games, like Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, make the color choice meaningful, attaching it to gameplay, or to timers, or to specific mechanics. Other games, like Super Smash Bros., make it purely cosmetic, a way for players to distinguish their Yoshi from someone else's in multiplayer matches. But regardless of the implementation, the variety itself speaks to something important. Yoshi isn't just one individual. He's representative of an entire species, a whole community of these dinosaurs living their lives, each one unique, but all of them recognizably Yoshi. The crafted aesthetics of recent Yoshi games have added new dimensions to his visual identity. Yoshi's woolly world rendered him and his entire world as if made from yarn, giving everything a soft, handmade quality. Yoshi himself appeared to be knitted, with visible stitching and wool texture. When he unraveled, or when threads pulled loose, you could see the individual strands, see how he was constructed. It was charming and surprisingly touching. This idea that Yoshi was something someone had made with care, something sewn together with love. Yoshi's crafted world took this even further, making Yoshi and his world appear to be physical craft projects. Cardboard boxes became buildings. Construction paper became platforms. Tape and glue and scissors were visible in the construction of levels. And Yoshi himself, while still recognizably Yoshi, had a slightly flattened, handmade quality, as if someone had carefully cut him out of felt and assembled him with brass fasteners. The game even let you flip levels around, seeing them from the back, revealing the tape and supports and behind-the-scenes construction that held everything together. These aesthetic choices did more than just look interesting. They reinforced the fundamental gentleness of Yoshi's character and games. A world made of yarn or cardboard is a world that invites touch, that feels safe, that doesn't threaten. It's the difference between a world built from cold steel and harsh angles, and a world that someone crafted with their hands, with care, with the intention of creating something pleasant to inhabit. Yoshi games have always understood this, have always chosen warmth over edge, invitation over intimidation. And this extends to the character himself. Yoshi's design is soft. Even when rendered in high-definition 3D, even when given realistic textures and lighting, he maintains a roundness, a gentleness. He doesn't have claws, really, just hands and feet with digits. He doesn't have sharp teeth. Most depictions show him with either no visible teeth or with flat, herbivore-style teeth. He isn't built like a predator. He's built like someone's friend, like someone who would rather eat fruit than fight, like someone who uses violence only when protecting others, or when left with no alternative. This design philosophy has kept Yoshi relevant across decades of changing aesthetic trends in gaming. While other characters got edgier redesigns, while dark and gritty became industry buzzwords, while realism and mature content dominated discussions, Yoshi remained Yoshi. He didn't need to be reinvented. He didn't need to grow up or become complex or add layers of angst to his character. He could just be cheerful and helpful and pleasant to look at, and that was enough. That was more than enough, because sometimes what we need is not more complexity, but more clarity, not more edge, but more warmth. Not a character who reflects the darkness of the world, but a character who shows us that kindness and gentleness and joy are not weaknesses. They are strengths. They are choices. They are ways of being that are just as valid, just as powerful, just as worthy of celebration as anything else. When children draw Yoshi, he's one of the easiest recognizable characters for them to capture. The round shapes, the simple color scheme, the basic elements that define him, all of it adds up to something drawable, something accessible. This is not accidental. Good character design is often measured by how easily it can be reproduced, how quickly someone can sketch it and have it be recognizable. Yoshi passes this test brilliantly. A green oval for the body, a smaller circle for the head, a red curve for the saddle, orange rectangles for shoes, large eyes, a prominent nose, and you have something that anyone would identify as Yoshi. This simplicity has made him a merchandising powerhouse. Plush toys of Yoshi fill store shelves, soft and huggable, perfect companions for children who love him. T-shirts feature his face and his eggs and his bright colors. Keychains, phone cases, posters, figurines, everything you can imagine has been made featuring Yoshi, and it all sells because people love him, because his design is appealing and his character is beloved. But more than merchandise, more than commercial success, Yoshi's visual design has given him longevity. Characters whose designs are tied too closely to specific trends or specific technologies can age poorly, can become embarrassing relics of their time. Yoshi, with his simple shapes and timeless appeal, has avoided this fate. He looks as good today as he did in 1990. Better, perhaps, because technology now allows his design to be rendered with more detail and fidelity than ever before. But the core remains unchanged. The essence is still there. He is still, fundamentally, the same Yoshi who emerged from that first game, the same friend who caught Baby Mario, the same guardian who has been there since the beginning. As we drift deeper into the dream tonight, let that image of Yoshi settle in your mind. The green scales, the red saddle, the orange shoes, the cheerful face, the gentle posture, the tail swishing contentedly. Hold that image like a gift, like a comfort, like a reminder that good design doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to be true. True to the character, true to the purpose, true to the feeling that the character is meant to evoke. And Yoshi's design has always been true, has always shown us exactly who he is, what he represents, why we should care. The guardian, made visible. The friend, made real. The dream, given form. But who is Yoshi, really? Is he a singular character, one specific green dinosaur who has been present at every significant moment in Mario's history? Or is Yoshi more of a title, a name shared by an entire species of these gentle dinosaurs? The games themselves have never been entirely clear on this point, and perhaps that ambiguity is intentional, allowing both interpretations to coexist comfortably. What we know for certain is that Yoshis, plural, exist as a species. Yoshi's Island, whether we're talking about the place or the game, is home to many of these dinosaurs, each one distinct, each one capable of everything that the Yoshi we know is capable of. They come in many colors, as we've established, but they also have individual personalities, individual lives, individual stories that don't involve Mario or heroic quests or any of the grand adventures we've witnessed. The first Paper Mario game showed us this most clearly. In that adventure, Mario traveled to Lava Lava Island, home to a village of Yoshis living their own lives completely independent of any plumber-related destiny. These Yoshis had names, which was noteworthy in itself. There was a village elder who provided guidance and wisdom. There were children who played and got lost and needed to be rescued from the nearby jungle. There were parents worried about their kids, and kids who didn't understand why their parents were so worried. In other words, there was a community. A real, functioning society of Yoshis who had their own concerns and priorities that had nothing to do with saving anyone. This village included Yoshis of various colors: red, blue, yellow, green, pink, light blue. Each had their own personality that went beyond their color. Some were brave, others timid. Some were curious, others cautious. Some were young, others old. They weren't identical copies of a single template. They were individuals who happened to share a species, the way humans are individuals who happen to be human. The Yoshis had their own language, or at least their own way of speaking, that sometimes needed translation for other species to understand. In Paper Mario games, when Yoshis spoke, their words appeared in parentheses, a visual indication that their speech was somehow different, that understanding them required a particular skill or perspective. Yet, they clearly could be understood, could communicate complex ideas and emotions, could participate fully in their community and in interactions with visitors. They also had their own culture around food. While Yoshis are famous for eating anything and everything they can fit in their mouths, they have preferences, favorites, special relationships with particular fruits. Different colored Yoshis prefer different fruits, as we've seen in Yoshi's Story and other games. This isn't just a gameplay mechanic, it's a cultural detail, a hint at individual preference and personality expressed through culinary choice. A community that cares about what tastes good is a community that has moved beyond mere survival, that has developed aesthetic appreciation for food beyond its utilitarian function. In Paper Mario, the Thousand-Year Door, while the Yoshi who joins Mario is a singular individual, a newborn hatched specifically during the adventure, we see an adult Yoshi elsewhere in the game as well. On the XS Express train, a grown Yoshi is simply traveling, going about their business, part of the world's tapestry. This Yoshi isn't important to the plot, doesn't provide any crucial information or assistance, is just there, living their life, using the train to get somewhere. The casual inclusion of this background, Yoshi suggests that Yoshis are integrated into the larger Mushroom Kingdom society, that they travel and work and exist in the same spaces as toads and Goombas and all the other species that populate these games. The question of intelligence is an interesting one. Yoshis are clearly sapient, clearly capable of complex thought and communication. They can understand instructions, can cooperate on elaborate plans like the relay race to save baby Mario and baby Luigi, can make moral decisions about right and wrong. Some sources, including trophy descriptions in Smash Bros. Games, have noted that Yoshis have high IQs even from a very early age. This explains how baby Yoshis in Yoshi's story could hatch and immediately understand the situation, immediately know that they needed to reclaim the Super Happy Tree, immediately be capable of the azone, complex platforming and problem-solving that the game requires. But intelligence in Yoshis seems to coexist with a certain innocence, a kind of guileless friendliness that never disappears, even as they demonstrate their cleverness. They don't scheme. They don't deceive. They don't calculate advantages or manipulate situations to their benefit. When they help openly, fully, without hidden agendas. This combination of intelligence and genuine goodness is rare in fiction, rare in reality, and part of what makes Yoshis so appealing. They prove that you can be smart without being cynical, capable without being calculating, powerful without being cruel. The Yoshi species' relationship with other creatures in the Mushroom Kingdom is generally positive. Shy Guys, those masked enemies who appear in many games, have a particular connection to Yoshis. In Yoshi's Island games, Shy Guys are common enemies that Yoshis eat and turn into eggs. But there doesn't seem to be any particular animosity there. It's more ecological than personal, the way predators and prey can coexist in a natural system without hatred. Yoshis eat Shy Guys when necessary, and Shy Guys try to avoid being eaten, and that's just how things are. Relationships with other dinosaur-like creatures vary. In Super Mario World, Yoshis could ride on or interact with various prehistoric enemies without hostility, suggesting some kind of kinship or mutual understanding. In other games, Yoshis have worked alongside creatures from other species, united by common cause even if their origins are different. This suggests a flexible, accepting nature, an ability to see past surface differences to common goals. Within their own species, Yoshis seem to cooperate effortlessly. The relay system in Yoshi's Island, where different colored Yoshis took turns carrying baby Mario, required perfect coordination and trust. Each Yoshi had to be ready to take the baby at the exact moment the previous Yoshi handed him off, had to know exactly where to go and what to do, had to trust that the next Yoshi in line would be ready when their turn came. This kind of seamless cooperation suggests either sophisticated communication that we don't see, or a deep cultural understanding of communal responsibility, or perhaps both. The village structure we see in the first Paper Mario suggests that Yoshis have governance, rules, social hierarchies, even if they're gentle ones. The village elder held authority not through force, but through respect, earned over a lifetime. Decisions seem to be made collectively, with input from multiple community members. This implies a democratic or consensus-based social structure, where no single Yoshi dominates, but where wisdom and experience are valued and heeded. There's also the question of how Yoshis reproduce. They lay eggs clearly, but the specifics are left vague. In some games, Yoshis create eggs by eating enemies, transforming consumed matter into new eggs almost instantaneously. These eggs are used as weapons and tools, not as offspring. But actual baby Yoshis come from eggs too, as we see in Yoshi's Story and other games. So there must be a distinction between eggs as projectiles and eggs as progeny, though the games never explain where that distinction lies. Perhaps it's simply that eggs containing baby Yoshis are larger, more carefully tended, kept safe until hatching, rather than thrown at enemies. Or perhaps it's magic, that convenient excuse for anything that doesn't quite make logical sense in these whimsical worlds. Gender among Yoshis is another area of pleasant ambiguity. Individual Yoshis have been referred to with masculine pronouns in English localizations, and Yoshi himself usually is called he. But Shigeru Miyamoto has stated he's not sure if Yoshi is male or female, or if such distinctions even apply to the species in the way they apply to humans. Since Yoshis lay eggs, which in our world is generally associated with female animals, but also frequently have deep voices and masculine presentation, it's possible that Yoshis simply don't map cleanly onto human gender categories. Perhaps they're all one sex that lays eggs, or perhaps there's something else entirely, or perhaps it varies by individual and doesn't matter much to their society. The games are content to leave this undefined, allowing Yoshi to simply be Yoshi without getting bogged down in reproductive biology. What matters more than any of these specifics is the impression of community that comes through. Yoshis take care of each other. When one is in trouble, others come to help. When babies fall from the sky, the whole community mobilizes to protect and return them. When happiness is stolen, newly hatched babies immediately take on the responsibility of reclaiming it for their elders. This is a species defined not by individual glory, but by collective care, by the understanding that everyone is responsible for everyone else's welfare. In our world, we often celebrate individualism, the lone hero who stands apart from the crowd, the exceptional person who succeeds where others fail. But Yoshi's world suggests a different value system, one where cooperation is the highest virtue, where helping others is not just admirable, but expected, where no one succeeds alone because success itself is defined by the well-being of the whole community. The relay race in Yoshi's Island is the perfect metaphor for this. No single Yoshi could carry baby Mario all the way to Bowser's castle. The journey was too long, too dangerous, too exhausting for any individual. But together, taking turns, supporting each other, they could accomplish anything. This is the dream of the Yoshi species. Not individual greatness, but collective goodness. Not standing out, but fitting in. Being part of something larger than yourself, contributing your unique gifts to a shared purpose. And in a world that often feels fragmented, where community bonds fray and people retreat into isolation, where we're told to look out for ourselves because no one else will, there's something revolutionary about Yoshi's quiet insistence that we're better together, that helping each other isn't weakness, but strength, that the guardian isn't great because he stands alone, but because he stands alongside others, ready to catch anyone who falls. As you drift further into sleep now, imagine yourself part of that community. Imagine living on Yoshi's Island, surrounded by others who would help you without hesitation, who you would help in return with equal immediacy. Imagine a world where when trouble comes, you never face it alone, where there are always others ready to take their turn, to carry the burden for a while so you can rest. Imagine that gentleness, that support, that unquestioning kindness extended not just to friends, but to strangers, even to babies who fall from the sky and need protection from dangers they don't understand. That's the world Yoshis have built. That's the dream they live. And maybe, just maybe, it's a dream we can carry with us when we wake. A reminder of how things could be if we chose cooperation over competition, kindness over cruelty, community over isolation. The Yoshis show us it's possible, show us it works, show us that a species built on helping each other can not only survive but thrive, can create happiness and beauty and safety for everyone. The guardian doesn't guard alone. The guardian is part of a community of guardians, all watching over each other, all ready to catch anyone who falls. And that might be the most important lesson Yoshi has to teach us, the most important dream he has to share. We've traveled a long way tonight, you and I, through decades of games and hundreds of levels. We've watched baby Mario fall from the sky and land safely on Yoshi's back. We've seen happiness stolen and reclaimed. We've raced on tracks and fought in arenas and explored worlds made of yarn and cardboard and pre-rendered 3D imagination. We've heard the cheerful Yoshi echo across levels and laughed at flutter jumps and marveled at eggs bouncing off walls to hit distant targets. We've seen the Guardian in all his contexts, all his adventures, all the ways he's been needed and has shown up, steady and true. But here's the thing about Yoshi's story, the thing that makes it different from so many other tales. It doesn't end. There is no conclusion, no final chapter, no moment where Yoshi rides off into the sunset and the screen fades to black for the last time. Because Yoshi isn't a character whose story completes. He's a presence that continues, a constant in an ever-changing world. A guardian who is always there when needed and will continue to be there as long as heroes need protecting and happiness needs defending. Right now, somewhere, someone is playing Yoshi's Island for the first time. They're watching baby Mario fall from that twilight sky, are seeing Yoshi look up and discover the baby on his back, are beginning that relay race across the island. And for that player, this isn't history. This is right now. This is happening in their present moment, as immediate and real as anything in their life. The story is beginning again, the way it's begun thousands upon thousands of times, the way it will begin thousands upon thousands more. Someone else is racing through a level in Yoshi's crafted world, collecting flowers and red coins and smiling at the handmade aesthetic, at the cardboard castles and construction paper clouds. They're discovering secret areas, finding hidden Poochie pups, earning perfect scores through careful play and patient exploration. They're experiencing Yoshi not as a relic of gaming history, but as a present joy, a current friend, a character who is just as relevant today as he was in 1990. And tomorrow, next month, next year, there will be new Yoshi games, new adventures we haven't imagined yet, new worlds to explore, new mechanics to master, new ways for the Guardian to do what Guardians do. Maybe the next game will return to Yoshi's Island, showing us more of the prehistoric world where it all began. Maybe it will take Yoshi somewhere entirely new, to alien planets or underwater kingdoms or dimensions we haven't thought of. Maybe it will revolutionize the formula, adding new abilities and challenges that transform how we understand the character. Or maybe it will be a gentle refinement, a loving recreation of what has worked before, giving new players a chance to experience the same joys older players have already known. It doesn't matter. Whatever form the next game takes, Yoshi will still be Yoshi. We'll still flutter jump and eat enemies and turn them into eggs. We'll still sound cheerful and look friendly and move through worlds with that distinctive combination of capability and gentleness. Because some things don't need to change. Some things are perfect as they are, and the only crime would be trying to fix them when they were never broken. This is what makes Yoshi eternal. Not that he's unchanging, frozen in time, never evolving. He's had many designs, many voices before Kazumi Totaka's recordings, many different roles and contexts. But through all those changes, the essence remained. The core of who Yoshi is, what he represents, why he matters, that has been constant from the first appearance to the most recent, from Super Mario World to whatever comes next. And what is that essence? We've danced around it throughout this long night, approaching it from different angles, seeing it in different contexts. But maybe now, as we prepare to let sleep finally claim us, as the dream reaches its natural conclusion, maybe now we can name it directly. Yoshi is about kindness in action, not kindness as an abstract concept or a nice thing to say, but kindness as a choice you make, again and again, in every moment when you could choose something else. When a baby falls from the sky, kindness catches him. When happiness is stolen, kindness reclaims it. When someone needs help reaching a high platform, kindness provides a flutter jump. When an enemy approaches, kindness doesn't attack out of cruelty, but defends out of necessity, and even then, turns the enemy into something useful rather than simply destroying them. When the world becomes a storybook, or gets covered in yarn, or faces any of the 100 other challenges these games present, kindness is the response that works, the solution that solves, the approach that succeeds. This is not naivete. Yoshi has faced genuine dangers, real threats to himself and others. He's fought bosses, navigated deadly traps, raced against timers with genuine stakes. The games he stars in can be challenging, sometimes very challenging, requiring skill and precision and determination. But through all of it, the core approach remains: solve problems with creativity rather than violence. Protect those who need protecting. Help those who need help. Be cheerful, even when things are difficult. Be kind, even when kindness seems foolish. In a medium often defined by power fantasies, by making players feel strong and dominant and unstoppable, Yoshi offers something different. He offers a different kind of power, the power to take care of others, to create happiness, to build communities, to catch people when they fall. It's a quieter power, less flashy, not the sort of thing that looks impressive in trailers or advertisements. But it's the power that actually matters, the power that actually changes things, the power that actually makes the world better. Every person who has ever played a Yoshi game, who has ever smiled at his cheerful exclamation, or felt relief at hearing the music swell as they completed a level, who has ever experienced the genuine panic of baby Mario crying and the relief of retrieving him before the toadies arrived, every one of those people has been touched by this, has learned, even if only subconsciously, that protecting others is noble, that helping others is worthwhile, that being kind is not weak, but strong. This is Yoshi's legacy. Not just the games, though they're excellent, not just the merchandise, though there's plenty of it, not even the character himself, beloved as he is. The legacy is the lesson, gently taught through hundreds of hours of gameplay across dozens of games. Be the person who catches someone when they fall. Be the one who protects when protection is needed. Be the one who helps restore happiness when it's been stolen. Be the guardian. We all can be that person. We all already are, in small ways, in moments we might not even notice. The times we've caught a friend's arm when they stumbled, the times we've listened when someone needed to talk, the times we've offered help without being asked, the times we've chosen gentleness when anger would have been easier. Those are all Yoshi moments. Those are all times when we've been the guardian, when we've caught someone who was falling. And maybe, inspired by this long dream we've shared tonight, we can be that person more deliberately, more consistently. Maybe we can flutter jump through our own challenges with the same determination Yoshi shows. Maybe we can approach problems with creativity and patience rather than frustration. Maybe we can remember that we're not in this alone, that we're part of a community, that when we help others, we strengthen everyone, including ourselves. The Guardian's dream isn't just Yoshi's. It's ours. It's the dream of a world where people take care of each other, where kindness is the default response, where no one falls without someone being there to catch them, It's a simple dream, really, an achievable dream, a dream that becomes more real every time someone chooses, in some small way, to be like Yoshi, to be helpful, to be kind, to be the one who shows up when needed. As this story ends, as your consciousness drifts finally into true sleep, as the images and sounds and themes of Yoshi's adventures blur into the abstract symbolism of dreams, hold on to one last thought, one last image, one last feeling. Yoshi, standing on a grassy hill as the sun rises over his island, the super happy tree bearing fruit in the distance, baby Yoshis playing nearby, learning to flutter jump, learning to turn enemies into eggs, learning all the skills they'll need for their own adventures someday. The community thriving, the world peaceful, everything as it should be. And Yoshi looks up at the sky, not anxiously but contentedly, knowing that if anyone falls today, he'll be there to catch them. Knowing that whatever challenges come, he'll face them with the same cheerful determination he's always shown. Knowing that he's the guardian, not because he's the strongest or the fastest or the most powerful, but because he chooses to be, again and again, every single day. That's the dream. That's the lesson. That's the gift Yoshi has given us across more than 3 decades of games and adventures and gentle, consistent kindness. Thank you for traveling through this dream with me tonight. Thank you for remembering with me, for exploring these worlds and stories and meanings. If you've enjoyed drifting through this long journey through Yoshi's history, consider subscribing for more quiet explorations of the characters and worlds that have shaped gaming into what it is today. There are so many more stories to tell, so many more dreams to share. But for now, sleep well. Dream of islands and flutter jumps and eggs bouncing off walls. Dream of babies caught before they fall and happiness reclaimed from those who would steal it. Dream of communities working together and guardians standing watch. Dream of being kind, of helping others, of being exactly what the world needs you to be. Dream of Yoshi. Dream like Yoshi. Be Yoshi. And when you wake, carry that dream into the real world, where falling people still need someone to catch them, where stolen happiness still needs reclaiming, where the guardian's work is never truly done, but is always, always worth doing. The dream continues, the guardian watches, and we, grateful for both, close our eyes and rest.